Greetings and salutations, one and all. We are live here with our webinar, and we are talking about the shocking truth. High blood pressure isn't the real problem. So, listen, we're going to be jumping in some things tonight. We're going to be jumping in some things this evening. And I want you guys to take notes because there's a lot of information. Now, what I also want at the end of this, if you guys stick around to the end, I'm going to give you a handout on reversing the high blood pressure all through natural means. So it's really a pleasure being here teaching this topic this evening. And again, this topic is coming to you on behalf of the Evisham SDA Health Ministries Department. So wherever you're joining us from, also we have FITMA on board that will be bringing this webinar over to you. So make sure and get your pen, get your paper, and get yourselves ready to learn some important and powerful stuff. Now, that being said, I will give a brief introduction of myself. My name is Jason, also known as Coach Jason. I am the Health Ministry Secretary here at the Evisham SDA Church, also the founder of FITMA. And what I do, I work primarily using the natural laws of health to help ladies, help gentlemen reverse their health conditions, their diseases using all natural remedies. Now, I'm also a certified medical missionary and a nutrition coach. And putting all of these methods together, we have been working as a team to reverse conditions here in the Caribbean. So that's a little bit about me. My background is actually as an airline pilot, but I've since retired from that and I'm doing the medical missionary and fitness and health work moving forward. So let us jump right into this webinar. But before that, let us bow our heads for a word of prayer. Bow your heads with me. Dear Father in heaven, we want to thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to work here, Lord, with the health ministry and share this webinar, Lord. We know because of all of the different sins and diseases that we are not experiencing the best of health. So as we go into this presentation tonight, we ask, Lord, that you may open our minds. We ask for the Holy Spirit to be our guide and to be our teacher. These are the things we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right. So what I'm going to be doing before I actually begin, I want you guys to let me know. I'm going to pull my phone up on one end so I can see you guys on the YouTube section there. And let me know where you guys are signing in from. Let me know where you guys are joining us from so I can give you guys a shout out. And then we're going to move right into this presentation. Now, there's a lot of stuff on here tonight. So go ahead and type it, in the comments below in YouTube. And let me see exactly where you guys are signing in from. And I'm going to make sure and give you guys a shout out. Like I said, stick around to the end because what we're going to be doing, we want to give you guys a handout so that you guys can actually, have this information because one thing to teach it here, it's a next thing when you need it to be able to find it. So I'm going to switch over to my screen now. So I'm going to come off camera. I'm going to switch over to my screen now and I am going to bring the presentation up. So let's go ahead and make that switch over and you guys will be seeing the screen coming up momentarily. There it is. We are ready to go. Now, we've got to make this clear. This webinar is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace the medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. Right. So I teach primarily from 4 sources. The first one, of course, is the Bible. The second one is the inspired writings. The third one is good science. And the fourth one is experience. Now, there is some background information, and this is one of the texts that I really like. Whenever I do a presentation, I always like to start with this text. And that text is taken from Exodus chapter 15 and verse 26. Exodus chapter 15, verse 26. And it says, "And the Lord said, if thou wilt diligently hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee." I want you to burn that text in your memory. In fact, take a note of it, write it down, and go back to it because you will see as we unfold, as we unpack this webinar tonight, that this text would prove to be one of those true texts. Now, Proverbs 26, verse 2, part B says, the curse causeless shall not come. The curse causeless shall not come. And one of my favorite books, Ministry of Healing, page 127, says that disease never comes without a cause. What never comes without a cause? That's right. Disease never comes without a cause. Now, what we're going to be doing here, guys, we're going to be setting this thing up. We're going to be having some working definition. We're going to lay the foundation. So that as we dive into this thing, as we unpack this thing, you're going to see how all of this is going to come together. And once you learn the formula, you know, like when you're doing your maths, when you did your maths for CXC, once you know the formula, it doesn't matter what problem they place before you. As long as you apply that formula, you will always get the solution. So that's what we are doing here. We're laying the formula. We are laying the foundation. We're laying the groundwork. And once we understand this, we just put this over whatever our disease is, whether it is hypertension like we'll be looking at this evening, diabetes, fibroids, whatever it is. You lay this over it, and you're going to get a working place. So it's going to be fun listening. I'm excited about this thing. And I see the folks are jumping on the YouTube. We see St. Vincent in the house. We see Trinidad in the house. And we got a lot of countries. If you're just jumping on, go ahead and punch in the YouTube, right in the comments below where you're coming in from. Now, we're going to start with this working definition. And this is something I want you to take your phone right now. Do me a favor. Take your phone and take a screenshot of it. Now, if you're watching this on the webinar, you'll have to come back and do this. But this is really going to help you to decode any disease that you would experience or a family member would experience. Now, I want you to read this with me. After the count of 3, 2, 3, it says, disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from the violation of the laws of health. Now, I'm going to highlight some words. I'm going to read it again. If you missed it the first time, let's go ahead and read it again. It says that what disease, pause there, pay attention to this. Now, this is defining what disease is. It says that disease is an effort of nature to do what? To free the system. Now, what are we freeing the system from? We are freeing the system from conditions that result from the violation of the laws of health. Lovely. Now, you got that. We're going to read it again, this time with emphasis, and we're really going to understand, we're going to embody what we're about to read. After the count of 3, 2, 3, let's go. It says, disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from the violation of the laws of health. Now we have a formula. We now need to understand what are these things that we are violating? What are these laws of health? And here they are, the same book, Ministry of Healing, page 127, it tells us they are pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, another word for abstemiousness is temperance, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. Now, when I teach these webinars live, I would normally call some folks up in front to demonstrate this whole philosophy. But I'm going to do it virtually today. And I want you to look at the screen. And you're going to see 5 persons lined up. On the far right, well, at least my far right, we're going to bring this thing that we call disease. We already know from the definition what disease is. So we're going to set this thing up and you're going to see how this thing comes together. Now, this chart is something that we will refer to as we go through this training. So I want you to burn this image in your head. If you want to make a little scrap of it, if you want to draw it, if you want to take a snapshot, please do that. So on the far right, it says that disease, that is that guy on the far right. Now, according to the definition we just read, let's back it up a bit. It says that this disease is what? An effort of nature to, what's the next highlighted word there? Say it with me, free the system. Okay, so now we have disease, and that disease came because the system was freeing itself. Now the question must be asked, what is the system freeing itself from? Again, let's go back to that definition. It says disease, we have defined, is an effort of nature to free the system from, what is that word? Conditions. So we have disease that came because the system was freeing itself from conditions. Now the question must be asked, where did these conditions come from? And it says that these conditions came about because there was a violation. Now, what? I want you to type it to me in the chat. I'm looking at the chat. What sayings was violated? That's right, the laws of health. So, disease came about because the system freed itself from conditions that were there because there was a violation of the laws of health. Now that we have that in our mind, keep this image with me because as we go through, we're going to unpack this thing and we're going to work with this formula to unpack hypertension. Remember, hypertension isn't the real cause, or high blood pressure isn't the real cause. Now, according to the medical literature, what is hypertension? What is when we talk about somebody is hypertensive? What are we talking about? No, we are looking at it as hypertension is a systolic blood pressure reading, and that is the top number. So let us unpack this thing a little bit. When you go and take your blood pressure, the doctor would say your blood pressure is 120 over 80, right? Now, the top number, that is the systolic number, and the bottom number is the diastolic number. Let's just keep it simple. Systolic, bottom, diastolic. Now, anytime that top number is over 130 and that bottom number is over 80, then you are considered a hypertensive. Now, there's an important word that is highlighted there. There's an important word. It says it has to be consistently. Now, why consistently? Because if you were to exert any sort of physical activity, for example, if you're running, I know I have some fit mars in here who exercise every day of the week. When you're exercising, your blood pressure will obviously go above 130. But that would be a transient period. After you finish exercising, it will come back down. We are talking about throughout the day, whether you're at rest or you're in movement, your blood pressure is consistently over 130 over 80, then you would be considered hypertensive. Now, just like everything else, hypertension has different degrees, varying degrees. And the normal is 120 and anything less than 80. So 120 over 70, 120 over 79, 110 over 80, anything like that. That is what we'll consider a normal blood pressure. Now, elevated is anything from 120 to 129, the top number, and the bottom number still 80 or less, right? So that's what we'll call an elevated blood pressure. Now, when you get diagnosed as a hypertensive is when, as we mentioned, consistently, the top numbers are 130 to 139, and the bottom number is 80 to 89. Now, just like varying degrees, this is what you would call stage 1 hypertension, right? So if every time you take a blood pressure, you're seeing 130 to 139 above or 80 to 89 below, then you can be considered as someone who has stage 1 hypertension. Now, what is stage 2? Stage 2 is where the top number is 140 or higher and the bottom number is 90 or higher. And stage 3 is where the top number is higher than 180 and the bottom number is higher than 120. Now, listen, let me put this in here. Let me stick this. Let me insert this. If you ever take your blood pressure or take the blood pressure of a loved one and their top number is over 180 and their bottom number is over 120, head to the emergency immediately. Don't wait, don't delay. Head to the emergency immediately because that is what we would call something of a serious nature. So you want to make sure and get down there. All right. Now, this hypertension, let's see if it's really a problem or if it's just an isolated thing in our neck of the woods. Now, I want you to read this with me. Right? Look at the screen. I want you to read this with me. It says that hypertensive, now this is somebody whose top number is consistently over 130 and bottom number is consistently over 80. Let's make sure we got that right. Yes, consistently over 80. It says that these persons are, pay attention to this, 3 times more likely to have a heart attack, 5 times more likely to develop heart failure, and 8 times more likely to suffer a stroke than somebody with a normal blood pressure reading. It also, talking about a hypertensive now, or hypertension, raises your risk for diabetes, eye problems, and kidney disease. Now, I want you to watch this. If you or somebody you know is diagnosed with hypertension, 3 times more likely to have a heart attack. And I'm going to come to some numbers because I want you to see that this heart attack is really a serious issue. 5 times more likely to suffer with a heart failure, and 8 times more likely to suffer with a stroke than persons with normal blood pressure. Now, according to the stats worldwide, approximately 1.3 billion adults have hypertension. That's a lot. That is a lot. Hypertension contributes to 10.8 million deaths per year. So we are beginning to see that this is not just a little blood pressure problem. This is a major issue that in some cases, or in a lot of cases, 10.8 of them are leading to fatalities. Now let's bring this thing home. In the Caribbean where we reside, hypertension affects between 16.6% and 30.2% of adults in the Caribbean. And this one is what I found interesting. When I was actually doing the research for this presentation, I found that Dominica, that nature island Dominica, reported the highest prevalence of high blood pressure at a whopping 47.7%. That is almost half of the population. The question must be asked, why? And this is something I will put in my to-do list for this year to discover what it is in Dominica that is causing the blood pressure to be so high. Now, does this only affect adults? No, no, sir. Children, watch this now. Children are also being affected. 1 in 7 children in the US have elevated blood pressure. Now, this is highlighting the importance of early intervention. Now, 1 in 7 children. And a couple of weeks ago, I was doing a presentation on obesity in childhood. And we saw that 1 in every 4 children in the Caribbean had or was considered obese or overweight here in the Caribbean. So you will see that there's a creeping correlation between being overweight and an elevated blood pressure. Now let's bring this thing even further. So we're going to be looking at the cause of death. Now I want you to stick this in your mind. Remember that we said they are 3 times more likely to suffer from a heart attack, 5 times more likely to suffer from a heart failure, and 8 times more likely to suffer from a stroke. Now watch what the data says. In the US, I know we have a lot of persons on this call from the US. The top cause of death, and this was in 2021, the top cause of death in the females was ischemic heart disease. Okay, look at that. The second cause was Alzheimer's, third COVID, fourth stroke, fifth chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and then sixth was trachea, bronchus, lung cancers. Now look at this. Of these top, 3 of them is related to the heart and circulation. 3 of them are related to those stats that we just gave earlier. When the blood pressure is elevated, the risk for these go up. Ischemic heart disease, stroke, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease amongst the female. In the male, same thing. Top one is still heart disease. Fourth was chronic obstructive, and then number 6 was stroke. That is America. Okay, well, what about us in the Caribbean? Let's bring our next country, Trinidad and Tobago. Now, in Trinidad and Tobago, in 2021, and I will definitely have to update these stats and see what they are, because they normally release them a couple of years after, as they have to compile the data. The top killer in 2021 in Trinidad was COVID. The second was diabetes for females, but it happened to be ischemic heart disease for males. The third was ischemic heart disease for females and diabetes for males. Now pay attention to this, right? Let me go back and show you something. It says here, according to this slide, it also raises your risk for what? What does it say there? Raises your risk for diabetes, eye problems, and kidney disease. So what we are seeing here, not only is being hypertension causing the circulatory and the heart-related deaths, it is also seeing, and we are also seeing an elevation in diabetes that could be correlated to that increased high blood pressure. Now, again, if you look at the bottom, you see stroke, you see kidney disease. Look at that. Look who is there. Kidney disease is back up. And then at the bottom is hypertensive heart disease. Now, this one is actually named hypertensive heart disease. So this one is a little bit more specific than just the heart disease, telling you exactly the core source of that heart disease. And this is in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Let's move to the next country, Grenada. Look at the top killer, or the second top killer in 2021 for females and male. What is it? Ischemic heart disease. For females, number 3, it was stroke, diabetes, kidneys, hypertensive heart disease. Now, I wanted to see how much of these top ones are related to that risk that we talked about earlier that was increased because of a high blood pressure. If we go over to the males, we have heart disease, prostate cancer, boom, there is stroke. Let's come down, boom, there is kidney disease, boom, there is hypertensive heart disease. We've seen it, you know. Now, let's bring it into St. Vincent. What about St. Vincent? Top killer for both male and female is ischemic heart disease. Top killer for both male and females in St. Vincent in 2021, stroke. Then we have COVID coming along. Then we have diabetes. And then for number 5 for females, hypertensive heart disease. For number 6 for males is hypertensive heart disease. So you will begin to realize that there's a trend, there's a pattern. And we are seeing that this is not just a little problem. This is not just an international problem. This is not just a US problem. We have any issues right here in our local countries. Now, this is something I want you guys to pay attention to. How do you know if somebody may be possibly experiencing a higher than normal blood pressure? So let me show you the different parts of the body to look at. And again, you could take a snapshot of this. In the heart, and this would be the person will probably self-report this, or if you take their pulse. So if you're in the medical field, you take their pulse, is something that you might see show up. Now in the heart, you will see a racing heart. They would also have heart palpitations, they would actually tell you that, irregularity or even pain. Now, keep in note, these are some of the symptoms that are related to hypertension. It doesn't mean that they are limited to hypertension, because if you're having a heart attack, you might have pain in your chest as well. But these symptoms might tell you that, hey, something is coming on, and that way you can start taking action. So something that you guys may want to invest in, and I like to always throw these things out early, get one of those blood pressure machines. And also, we are not doing the topic tonight, but I'm going to tell you now, get one of those diabetic blood sugar reading machines, right? So get one of hypertension machine, the blood pressure machine and the blood sugar machine. That is something you always want to invest in so that you can get exact data as to what's going on when somebody is having something that is out of the normal. Now, in the kidneys, they will normally report a lower back pain. So if you have somebody reporting that, hey, my lower back is hurting me, or there is changes in urine color or smell, urination patterns, and night sweats, this could also be a case of hypertension. Now, this is also one of the cases that may come about with diabetes as well. So I just want to bring that to your forefront. But what we are seeing here, when these symptoms present themselves, the symptoms are like warnings to tell you, hey, go and test. Bring out that machine, check your blood pressure, right? So that's what we're doing here. Now, in the hands, you might see a slight swelling at the fingertips, which is a sign of poor blood flow, or you may see water retention, so swelling, and also may have that tingling. That tingling that you have in your fingertips, that is something that somebody with high blood pressure will have. Now, what about the legs and feet? Swelling, water retention again, aching or tingling, and varicose veins. So if you have varicose veins, that is a signal for poor circulation. It would also maybe a trigger that tells you, hey, you need to start checking your blood pressure. And as you go through, you will see some of the things that you can do to prevent it from elevating. All right. Now, in terms of the head, this is one that is normally very accurate. Headaches, lightheadedness, dizziness, ringing in the ears, very popular, blurry vision. Bowels, constipation, bloating, or gas. And in terms of some lifestyle things that could contribute to high blood pressure, if somebody is sedentary, like hardly move about, or their job is a stressful one, they have family or financial issues, or even unconfessed sins, these are things that may trigger a high blood pressure. Now, here's the thing. Once you have been diagnosed with high blood pressure and you go to your doctor, these are some of the primary things that they will tell you to do. Before they even move to the drugs, these are some of the things that they will tell you to do right off the bat. They will tell you to restrict the use of salt in your cooking, and also maybe even prescribe a low salt diet, maybe from a dietitian. They would also tell you to lose weight, They will tell you to start to exercise, and if you're a smoker, to stop smoking. And of course, they will tell you to definitely add more fruits and vegetables in your diet. So these are some of the things that you would get when you go to your healthcare profession. Now, failure to work, then they will now switch over to the typical conventional step care approach. And this is where the drugs would come in. Now, the first that you may be recommended is an antihypertensive drug, and it is something called a diuretic. And I'll explain what a diuretic is. But the typical drugs you will find falls into two categories. They would either decrease blood volume or dilate your blood vessels. And I'll show you how that works. So the first one will be an antihypertensive drug, and that is typically a diuretic, which will decrease the total blood volume and by extension lower your blood pressure. Now, a second one might be something called a beta blocker. What beta blockers do, they cause the heart to beat less frequently, and they would also dilate the blood vessels. And next one will also be a calcium channel blockers, and these are the categories of drugs. They would obviously have different names, but this is what they will do. And this will cause the blood vessels to dilate. You also have the ACE inhibitors, angiotensin receptor blockers, alpha receptor blockers, or vasodilators. Now, the easiest way to explain this is that the two categories they would normally fall into is either they would reduce the blood volume or they would lower the heart rate and open the blood pressure. Let me explain, open the vessels. Let me explain to you. Look at these two pictures there. I want you to jump in the chat. There's a car, the yellow car, and there is the blue car. Now, of these two cars, which one do you think will put the most pressure on the road that you're driving on? Which of these cars? I want you to put it in the chat for me. In the chat below, which of these cars would apply the most pressure to the road that you're driving on? The yellow car that has everything and their neighbor in it, or the little car that has enough room for just homeboy inside? Perfect. Obviously, the yellow car, right? Because the yellow car has all of that stuff and it's pressing against the road. The blue car only has the gentleman there and can't even have, well, he doesn't even have another front wheel. He only has one nose wheel there. Why? Because it is less pressure. Now, the diuretics do the same thing. So what the diuretics will do, they will reduce the total blood volume. So they will, this would also cause you to, diuretics mean that you will cause the body to lose excess water. So when you lose excess water, it is less, if you want to put it, it's a smaller car or smaller volume driving through, moving through your vessels, which would in effect reduce the overall blood pressure. Does that make sense? If it makes sense, give me a 1 in the chat, right? Lovely. Now, that is what a diuretic would do. So it would reduce the total blood volume, which means less blood is going through the vessels, which means there is less weight, less pressure on the arteries and veins, right? So if that makes sense, give me 1 in the chat. Now, the second one is the inhibitors and the beta blockers. Now, the first thing it will do is reduce your heart rate. Obviously, if your heart rate is pumping less, then the pressure would reduce. Like if you turn up the pump or turn on the pump. Now, the second one is they would open the blood vessels. Now, let me show you something. Of these two hoses, which of these hoses would the water go a further distance? Which one will shoot out the water with more pressure? The blue hose, where the guy squeezes the tip, or the other one where he takes his finger off the tip and allow it to just roll out? Which of these would create more pressure at the nozzle? You type your answers in the chat. Okay, perfect. The blue hose. Why? Because he has squeezed the nozzle, thereby reducing the surface area and increasing the pressure, so it's shooting out more. If he takes his finger off, like in the yellow hose, the pressure drops. So what the beta blockers do, they do the exact same thing, and they cause the blood vessels to open up, which will give the same effect as if you take your finger off the hose, and it will cause the blood pressure to drop, right? If that makes sense, give me a 3 in the chat. Lovely, lovely. Make all the sense in the world. Now, unfortunately, if they just work like that, that would have been awesome. But drugs also comes with side effects. So if they just did what we just earlier described, that would have been excellent. However, we have some side effect issues that we have to deal with. And let's look at some of them as we go into this presentation. Now, one of the drug medication that is normally used is hydrochlorothiazide oral, right? And according to WebMD, this is something that you can actually cross-check for yourself. You will see that some of the side effects that are associated with the use of these drugs, I see in the tree comes in, excellent job, is loss of appetite, feeling like throwing up, diarrhea, stomach cramp, sexual problems, nearsightedness, hepatitis, yellow of the skin. List goes on. Kidney disease, oh boy, hives, systemic lupus, rash, life-threatening allergic reaction. Life-threatening allergic reaction is the next way of saying death, okay? But this just sounds better. Just thought I'd put that in there. Gout, low amount of magnesium in the blood, pay attention to that. High amount of calcium in the blood, and hemolytic anemia. My problem was just a little blood pressure issue. I just had some blood pressure issue. And I was recommended a drug to deal with that blood pressure issue. I am realizing that by going on this drug, I could end up with some other issues. The question must be asked, why is this? And this is where I want you guys to start paying attention. So if you was kind of listening to me, I want you to turn the gear full up. You need to put on the device, if it's not the screen that you're watching me on, and pay attention to this, because this is where you're going to get important. Now, remember earlier, I showed you guys this picture. This picture is what I showed you guys earlier. We said that, let's recap it again, that disease on the far right came because the system was freeing itself from conditions that came as a result of a violation of the laws of health, right? So why were the drugs intended to fix this issue, to fix this disease, cause me to have other issues? Well, here it is. Here is the reason. The drugs would tend to address the condition. That condition, seemingly fixed, would cause another disruption, which would cause the system to respond. Now, this is the cycle. So you have high blood pressure, you take a drug, the drug brings down the high blood pressure. But because it is a drug, because of a foreign substance, it will cause a disruption. And that disruption will cause a response in the system. Now, that response would elicit another condition to show up. For that condition, you will now have to use another drug to fix that problem, which will cause another condition, which you'll have to fix another drug. And if you look at the chart here, you see disruption, response, disruption, response, disruption, response. So you started with the treatment for one issue, just a simple high blood pressure. But because that drug is now causing all of these other issues, causing all of these other conditions to manifest themselves, you now end up with drugs for multiple things. Does that make sense? If it makes sense, type in the chat, say, Coach, it makes all the sense in the world. Right. So this is why when you start treating one problem, you end up with other issues, because drugs doesn't just go in and treat that problem you went for. They come with their own side effects. And these side effects will cause disruption or cause new conditions, which the body will try to free the system of. And then now that will manifest itself. And then the next drug will be introduced to fix that condition, system freeing, a next condition. And you start with one drug, you end up with 7. Now, again, this is one of my favorite authors, Sister Ellen G. White. And the question was asked, do drugs cure diseases? And let's read this, because I want us to read this thing. It says, people need to be taught that drugs do not cure diseases. It is true that they sometimes afford present relief, and the patient appears to recover as a result of their use. This is because nature has sufficient vital force to expel the poison and to correct the conditions that cause the disease. Health is recovered in spite of the drug. But in most cases, pay attention to this, drug only changes the form and location. Watch this. Form and location of the disease. Often the effect of the poison seems to be overcome for a time, but the results remain in the system and work a greater harm at some later period. Now, let's keep reading. Actually, before we do that, so look at this. The drugs appear to work. You have a headache? Okay, I have a headache. Let me take a painkiller. The headache goes away. So the drugs appear to work. But that only does what? Change the form and location of the disease. Often, look at this, the effect of the poison seems to be overcome for a time, but the results remain in the system and work greater harm at some later period. Loss of appetite, feel like throwing up, diarrhea, stomach problems, sexual problems, nearsightedness, hepatitis. You went to treat diabetes, you went to treat hypertension. How did you end up there? The answer is given. They remain in the system and work great harm at some later period of time. This is why when you take drugs to cure diseases, you will be a great customer for the pharmaceutical industry, because that drug will put you on another drug, and you will be a repeat buyer, staying alive only because of the use of drugs for the rest of your life. Business model, but not so good for your health. Make sense? Great, lovely. I see my viewers are saying it makes all the sense in the world. Lovely. Listen, guys, as you guys are getting value from this, remember to go ahead and share this. Let other persons you need to know come on and learn from this webinar. Now, what is a better approach? So now we understand that drugs can't fix the problem. What is a better approach? So Ministry of Healing tells us, it says the first thing to be done is to ascertain or find out the true character of the sickness. Then go to work intelligently to remove the cause. If the harmonious working of the system has become unbalanced by overwork, overeating, or other irregularities, do not endeavor to adjust the difficulties by adding a burden of poisonous medicines. The use of natural remedies, listen to this, requires an amount of care and effort that many are not willing to give. Nature's process of healing and upbuilding is gradual, and to the impatient, it may seem slow. The surrender of hurtful indulgences requires sacrifice, but in the end, it will be found that nature, untrammeled, does her work wisely and well. Those who persevere in obedience to her laws will reap the reward in the health of body and the health of mind. So it says the first thing we have to do is to ascertain the true cause. Let's go back to our picture here. Let's go to this one. So if the disease was there because the system was freeing itself from conditions, we don't go and treat the condition. The heart is racing, we don't go and get blood pressure. We don't go and get a medication just to lower the heart. The blood pressure is high, we don't just go and get a medication to lower the blood pressure. The question must be asked, what violation caused the blood pressure to be high? And what law of health was violated that caused the blood pressure to be high? And if we do that, then we can sit back and watch the glory of God. And listen, herbs, natural remedies, yes, they may take a little bit longer than the drugs to work. However, once you do this, it says that you will reap the reward in health of body and health of mind. So now that we have that working model, now that we have the formula, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to dive into this thing and let's look at some of the primary causes. What did I say? The primary causes of hypertension. So here are some. It's not an exhaustive list, but we're going to go through some. The first one is a high sodium intake. 2, low potassium intake, high fatty foods, spicy foods, stimulating drinks. That is our Red Bull, our Monster, our caffeine. These are some of the stimulating drinks. Smoking, hormonal imbalance, lack of exercise, stress, inflammation, infection. These are some of the things that will cause hypertension. Eating all flesh, fish, chicken, all of these stuff. All caffeine-related drinks, as we mentioned, high cholesterol. There's also drug-induced blood pressure, so that would be a side effect from taking another drug for another condition that could cause you to have high blood pressure. Competitive sports and activities, loud talking. And of course, once we violate the laws of health. Now, I want to stick something in here. We are going to take our time. I don't expect you to memorize everything I just give you. But we're going to take our time and we're going to unpack this thing. What I'm going to do at the end of this, I'm going to seek to make this very simple for you. Very, very simple. I don't expect you to go and make drastic changes right away. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring to you the information. You're going to understand where the cause of this disease comes from. And then you're going to take your time and we're going to work upon this thing piece by piece. Right? Now, some secondary causes of hypertension are chronic kidney disease. Now, remember, the kidneys actually help to regulate the blood pressure. So if you have a default or fault kidney, then the kidney cannot regulate the blood pressure as it should. As a result, you could have high blood pressure. Adrenal adrenal gland fatigue, diabetes, and also obesity. Now, this is obesity. These are some of the secondary causes. So once the laws of health, as you guys would have just mentioned, we just mentioned there, have been violated, these are also some of the secondary issues that may cause the blood pressure to go up. Now, listen, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. And this is the one that everybody seems to be afraid of speaking of. And listen, we're going to talk tonight, we're going to be talking about the elephant in the room. And that elephant in the room, we're going to look at some case studies. Let's look at some case studies before I bring it out. Ellen, let's look at some case studies. Now, on January 11th, the vaccination center in Lausanne, a city of 140,000 inhabitants in Western Switzerland, started the coronavirus disease 2019 vaccination with the mRNA-based vaccines. As of February the 9th, 13,296 vaccine doses were administered, with 12,349 patients receiving their first dose, and that's the different vaccines, and 947 receiving their second dose. Now, we report a case series of 9 patients with stage 3, not stage 1, not stage 2, stage 3. What is stage 3? 180 or higher for the top number. And what the bottom number is, let's pull up the screen here, let's pull up the slide here. The bottom number is 120 or higher. Now look at this. This is during the first 30 days of taking the COVID-19 vaccine. They went from 0 stage, no hypertension, to stage, not stage 1, not stage 2, but stage 3. We're going to look at the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about this. Don't worry, coach will talk about it tonight. The mRNA vaccines have received intense scrutiny for immediate hypersensitivity reactions in the wake of an initial report signaling 21 cases of anaphylaxis. Right? Now, let's keep it going. It says here that venous thrombosis have been linked to several COVID-19 vaccines, but there is limited information on the Moderna vaccine effect on the risk of arterial thrombosis. Here we describe a case of a postmodern COVID-19 vaccination arterial infarct with the vaccine-associated diffuse cortical edema that was complicated by refractory intracranial hypertension. Know about all of the medical terms, we'll break it down. Now here's the case. 24 hours after receiving, this is a case of a young lady, 24 hours after receiving her first dose of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, a 30-year-old female developed severe headaches. 3 weeks later, she was admitted with a subacute headache and confusion. Imaging initially showed scattered cortical thrombosis with an elevated opening pressure on the lumbar puncture. Let's keep it going. An external ventricular drain was placed, but she continued to have elevated intracranial pressure. Ultimately, let me just open this a bit here so you guys can see the full screen. Ultimately, she was required a hemicraniectomy, but intratabral cerebral edema resulted in her death. Pathology was consistent with thrombosis and associated inflammatory response. Now we're looking at this thing piece by piece. Here's the next case study. MC Katia was COVID-19 vaccinated with 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson. She had been very enthusiastic about the COVID-19 vaccine for months. Vaccinated individuals do extremely poorly with even the most minor surgeries. They tend to develop blood clots either during or shortly after the operation, and these clots can be devastating and in many cases fatal. This is happening with all COVID-19 vaccines, not just the original clot shots, which were the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, and that was the reason Johnson & Johnson was pulled off the market, by the way, because it was causing blood clots. We see a 522% increase in hematological disabilities in 2022 in the UK. Blood clotting disorders increased by 162%. Platelet disorders increased by 221%. Blood disorders increased by 137%. These are COVID-19 vaccine-induced hematological disorders. Now, we got to talk about that. This is the one that nobody wants to talk about. Yes, we understand, you're overweight, you're eating the high-fat foods, yes. But it is hard to ignore the truth, and you could probably testify for maybe persons, maybe your own self, that after the mass inoculation of the COVID-19 experimental jab, we saw a massive increase in blood pressure numbers. It is hard to ignore that fact. So I want you guys to let this soak in a little bit. Why? Because this is something that has to be said. And I'll also let you guys know that since the introduction of the COVID-19 vaccination, as medical missionaries, we had to change our approach. So the typical remedies that we would normally use no longer work. We had to bump it up a notch. And first off, we had to address, what did I say? We had to address the COVID-19 vaccine before going to work on any other conditions or any other diseases. And you are beginning to see why. Because it is hard for you to deny the fact that since the COVID-19 experimental program, we are seeing a lot of increases in all of these different conditions. And this has to be raised. Before, this is actually the first presentation I am doing with the updates from what we are seeing post-COVID-19. And if you go and look at the data, you would see that there has been a strong link to the vaccination and the increase in not just blood pressure, but heart-related and all other diseases. Now, let us continue because we're going to now look at the fix. Now, this is something that is normally very confusing to most persons. When you have high blood pressure, should you avoid salt altogether? Well, let's break this thing down. First of all, we need to identify what is salt. And salt is a compound made up of different minerals. So we are familiar with table salt, which is sodium chloride and iodine. And we have the sea salt, we have the pink Himalayan salt, we have the Celtic sea salt, and these are all salts. When we talk about salt, we talk about that compound made up of different minerals. Now, sodium is one of those minerals that is found in salt. However, when it comes to salt, the best type of salt that you should be using for diabetics is the pink or black Himalayan sea salt, or even the Union sea salt, Celtic sea salt, any of those natural salts. Why? Because they have a lot more minerals in them that would actually complement your blood pressure and would actually help. It is also necessary because it also provides some key electrolytes, right? So that is just something I want to point out there. The table salt, yes, of course, you want to avoid it. The best salt you should use if you have high blood pressure is any sort of natural salt. The pink Himalayan, the black Himalayan, the sea salt. For those in the Union sea salt, that is the best salt for you to use. Of course, you still have to use it judiciously, which means you just have to use, you don't want to use it, overdo it, but it is not something you want to cut out, because if you cut it out altogether, you'll be losing those electrolytes, you'll be losing those minerals, and your problem could actually be aggravated. Now, one of those trace minerals is something we call potassium, and it is necessary for the heart, the kidneys, and other organs to function normally. If you remember, when we look at one of the side effects for one of the drugs that we mentioned, hydrochloride, it actually causes potassium levels to drop, right? Which would, again, aggravate the problem. And here are some of the natural sources of potassium. Blackstrap molasses, soybeans, potatoes, bananas, nuts, avocado, coconut water, watermelon, and also kale. Now we're going to do a little exercise. We've been listening for a bit. Let's do a little exercise, right? So get ready with me. We're going to do this exercise. I want you to look at the picture on the screen. Look at this picture on the screen. And you, after listening to this webinar, went to your bathroom. And this is what you saw. You saw the floor flooded. Water is coming out from under the bathroom door. You with me now? And when you open the door and you looked inside, you looked and you saw that the sink was overflowing. Walking closer to the sink, you discovered that there was a blockage in the sink hole. The tap was on full blast and you were having this issue. So now, let us do a little activity. I want you to give me the sequence of events. How are you going to fix that? Which one are you going to do first? Which one are you going to do second? Which one are you going to do third? Here are the options. Mop the floor, turn off the top, unplug the sink. I don't have any background music for us to play while we wait, but this is going to be our little activity this evening. So let's go ahead. Type it in the chat. Think about your answers first. Which one are you going to do first? You walked inside. You saw the sink overflowing. You notice upon closer discovery that the tap is on full blast, the sink is clogged up, and it is pouring out on the floor. What are you going to do first? What are you going to do second? And what are you going to do third? Let's go ahead. Let's get those answers going in the chat. Let me give a shout out while you guys are posting the answers to some of the guys that are on the live here. We have Lickstra, we have Sister Roxanne John, we have Lenicia, Karen, Jenny, Jocelyn, Mauricia, Merlin, Jenny, Merle, Shell. Okay, that's it, right? Sister Tell, Jenny Stan, Eileen. Okay, so yes, let's see now. I think we have Coach Judy on here, if I'm not mistaken, Shirley Howard. Right, so let's see, the answers are coming in. Okay, so Roxanne has answered, Cheryl G has answered. I'm going to give you guys a couple more seconds to get these answers in. I'm excited. I want to see what you guys are going to post. Super excited about this one. Okay, so let's start with Sharon. I'm going to move down to Roxanne. So Sharon says she's going to turn off the top. That's number first. That's number one. Second, she's going to unplug the sink and then she's going to mop the floor. Okay, that answer is in the bag. Sister Roxanne John, turn off the top, unplug, and then mop the floor. Okay. Charlene said, clear the sink. Charlene, you gotta give me the steps in the sequence. You gotta give me the steps, Charlene. Nice try. All right, Lenicia says, turn off the top, unplug the sink, and mop the floor. All right, Tell says, turn off the top, unplug, and mop the floor. All right, looks, excellent job, guys. That is correct. That is the exact sequence. We're going to turn off the top first. We're going to unplug the sink, and then we are going to mop the floor. Now, as we just read, the first thing to be done is to ascertain the true character of the sickness and then go to work intelligently to remove the cause. Now, again, let me just do that. Right. So let us just look at some information here, right? And again, remember, guys, we're learning this thing together. We're taking our time. My goal here is to teach you, right? We're going to take our time. We're going to learn this thing together. And there's no judgments, okay? No judgments, right? So let's look at flesh and hypertension. And you know, you always hear this come up a lot, but it's never explained why. So let me explain it to you. Typically speaking, in most flesh products, animal products, especially after preparation, it is loaded with high sodium. And we know that sodium, high sodium, is a trigger for high blood pressure. Now, high sodium, not high salt, right? High sodium. Also for aged meats, and just point to note, most of the food, most of the meats that you eat are aged meats. Why? Because we hardly kill the food and then go right ahead and cook it. So it is on the shelf for maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's frozen. You don't know how long. And once you have aged meats, you have something called hypoxanthine that is found in aged meats. The older the meat, the higher the level of hypoxanthine. Additionally, cholesterol is in the meat. Now, what cholesterol does, especially bad cholesterol, cholesterol causes inflammation in blood vessels to go up, which clogs the arteries. Let me show you, let me ask you guys something, right? Let me ask you guys something. Where do you think that most of the cholesterol in your body comes from? Where does most of the cholesterol, let me come off screen for a little bit. Let me look into the camera. Where does most of the cholesterol in your body come from? Go ahead and drop your answers in the chat below. Where does most of your cholesterol in the body come from? Make a guess. Let me see if anybody's going to get it. Let's see. Come on, jump in the chat. Where does the majority of the cholesterol in your body come from? All right, I see the answer. That is correct. It comes from the liver. So majority of the cholesterol comes from your liver, which means that if you have high cholesterol, then the only other place that you can get it from that will tip the scale will be something outside of your body. So let's bring it into layman terms. In layman terms, your body makes majority of the cholesterol that is present in your blood. If there is more cholesterol than is normal, it means it came from outside the body. We did say that the liver, let me see if I could just, I want to look into the camera a bit. Right. We did say that the liver is responsible for making most of the cholesterol. Right. We're building. So it means that if we eat anything that has a liver, we are ingesting additional cholesterol. Make sense? So if your cholesterol is high and most of that cholesterol is made in your liver, the only other thing that you could turn off, because you can't turn off your liver, is all of the other livers or liver containing foods that you're ingesting. So if it has a liver, then it will be making cholesterol. The only addition to this is mushrooms. So if you eat mushrooms as part of your diet, not medicinally, if you eat mushrooms as part of your diet, mushroom can also raise your cholesterol. Make sense? So the simple fix is that turn off all the liver except yours that are in your diet, and that will fix your cholesterol issues. Now, if that thing makes sense, let me know in the chat. Say, Coach, the thing make all the sense in the world. Right? Let's go back to the screen now. Right. So we're there. We see here that cholesterol causes inflammation to go up in the blood vessels, which clogs the arteries. When the arteries are clogged, like the pipe we saw, the pressure goes up. Now, that is the link between meat. So meat does three things. Meat is high in sodium. Let's say it is sodium free for the purpose of this exercise. So if it is sodium free, then it is high in hypoxanthine, which comes from aged meat, and it is high in cholesterol, which that meat has a liver. So if we're going to turn off the top, the first thing we want to turn off is the thing that is putting the most amount of water in the sink, in this case, the pipe, which is dumping most amount of water in your body, or the most amount of high blood pressure contribution will be eliminating all animal and its byproducts. This will take a process. I don't expect you to go tomorrow and become a vegetarian. If the Lord so inspire you, please don't let me stop you. But I'm giving you the steps, so now you're setting it up. Like when you're doing your exams, teachers will give you the steps. But we take our time and we go through the year and we learn all these steps. When the exam time comes, then we now put in what we learn. So it's not something I expect you to go and do immediately. But I am planting the seed so that you know the system, you know the steps to take. So they eliminate all animal and its byproducts. So milk in itself from animals will raise inflammation regardless, which is why somebody has migraine, they have acne, they have mucus from cold and so forth. You eliminate milk one time and most of those issues will go away. That is the animal milk, right? This applies to low fat as well as full cream. The advantage that low fat has and skim milk is that it has low fat, but it still has the inflammation causing effect. So we're talking about milk, we're talking about cheese, we're talking about fish, chicken, beef. Well, pork has a different issue by itself, so that is a topic by itself. I'll have to do that topic. Roxanne, we'll have to do that topic next time, right? All of those things you want to eliminate from your diet. Now, the second thing is going to be to remove stimulants. Now, stimulants, of course, what is one of the effects that the drug did? It caused your heart rate to go slower, so you could lower your blood pressure. So by that alone, we know that if you make the heart go faster, the blood pressure will go up. Stimulants causes the blood pressure to go faster. This will be in the form of caffeine, alcohol, condiments, and see, these are some of the sneaky ones. See, things like vinegar. Vinegar is actually a stimulant. Vinegar is twice fermented alcohol. So apple cider vinegar, white vinegar, and you will find vinegar in things like mustard, ketchup, and these condiments that we normally use. And these are some of the sneaky ones that come in. You never think, oh, I'm not using alcohol. But if you're using some of these items, these have vinegar in them, which will have the same effect over time, right? If you drink a drop of gramazone or a glass of gramazone, you will die. The only difference is the period of time it takes, right? So we just bring in the awareness here. Now, let me talk about the caffeine. I know we have two groups of persons on here tonight. We have the Adventist group and we have the non-Adventist. So I'm not going to speak to the Adventist because I don't need to have the conversation with you about not using caffeine. That is an established order, right? For the non-Adventist, what caffeine does, caffeine has the same stimulating effect. In addition to the stimulation, caffeine could also cause irritations in your bowel. Over time, it could lead to colon cancer. So that is why we don't use caffeine. And that is just, let me just insert that in there. Again, I'll probably do a whole breakdown on this, but I'll just insert in here. What are some of the sources of caffeine? Let me see, Village Ram, Roxanne. We have the Red Bull. We have the Rockstar. We have the Monster and all of these energy drinks. For those of you in the gym, some of these pre-workouts and fat burners tend to have caffeine in them. And next thing you look out for, especially for those of you who go to the gym, is something called Uhimbi. It's normally found in fat burners and pre-workouts. That would also raise your blood pressure. And next thing you want to avoid is these preparation methods. Deep frying and barbecuing. Deep frying changes the entire composition of the meal, and it will actually cause your cholesterol levels to go up, which we know what cholesterol does. Barbecuing will cause charring. The charring is a carcinogenic, is a cancer causer, and it will also cause inflammation in your body to go up. So if you notice, we are trying to attack this from 2 points. Turn off the triggers and lower inflammation, right? So we're still looking at turning off the diet. Again, we have looked at the spices, hot sauces, we've looked at the stimulants. Now let's look at tyramine. And this is one of those hidden stimulants. Now listen, guys, the first time I watched this, I was blown away. Now tyramine is what we call a hidden stimulant, and this will blow you away too, right? The body actually produces tyramine naturally. Just like cholesterol, the body produces it naturally. However, when it is elevated, when there's more than the body needs, then it will cause your blood pressure to elevate. So when you have an excess in tyramine, just look at tyramine as a hidden stimulant. Just like I just showed you how alcohol could be in your vinegar, could be in your salad dressing, could be in your mustard, could be in your ketchup. This is what tyramine is. It is one of those sneaky ones. Whenever there is more, it means that it's coming through your diet. Now, where does it come from? Aged, fermented, spoiled. So if something is aged, if something is fermented, if something is spoiled, then tyramine will be found in them, in addition to what your body is producing. Now, let's break this down, Sister Tell, into some real-life examples. Julian, what are some of the aged foods? We looked at the meats already. Those are some aged foods. Now let's look at some of the fermented foods. Some of the fermented foods would be things like, as we mentioned, the apple cider vinegar. That would be one of them. Vinegar in general, which is used as the base for salad dressing, ketchups, and so forth. And then here's the natural ones. How much of us ever heard about things like sauerkraut? Sauerkraut? Tempeh. Now, tempeh is a soy-based food, but it is a fermented one. So even though it is good, because it is fermented, you will then have an increased level of tyramine. And what I want to show you guys, I want to show you guys that even the good foods, listen, you got to remember, the Bible says that we wrestle not against, Sharon, good to see you, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against spiritual wickedness in high places. The devil knows that some of us, he can't get us to cause or to perform the big sins. He can't get us to eat off the plan, but he could sneak things into our diet that are seemingly good that would cause our bodies to be disrupted. And if your body is the temple of the Lord and he could disrupt the body, it means that he could disrupt the worship place or the meeting place for the Lord, and then the Holy Spirit can work on you fully. So I want you to start looking at this from a spiritual warfare. This is not Coach Jason telling you not to eat this and not to eat that. No. Coach Jason is bringing awareness to show you the avenues in which the devil will use to attack your body. If he attacks your body, he by a sense attacks your mind and also attacks your spirit. And then you cannot be 100% ready and usable in the Lord's service. This is how I want to look at it, because as the Spirit revealed that to me, I realized that it's not so much about restriction of what you can't and can do. It is about preparing yourself for full use. Make sense? Excellent, excellent. So some of the other sources now, let's look at the next one. Spoil, and this is the one that really got me. Because all of these that I'm going to give you are good things. Overripe avocados, overripe bananas, overripe breadfruit. All these are good food now. But once they overripe, the tyramine goes up. The tyramine goes up, your blood pressure goes up. Your blood pressure goes up, you have some issues. And I used to like, let me look for a name here. Valerie. Sister Val, good to have you. I used to like Sister Val, banana bread. And you can't make banana bread with no green or just right banana. You have to make banana bread with the banana with all the spots. But watch this. When I learn about this tyramine business, I say, whoa, 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 whoa. I not eating pork, no, Sister Dick. I not eating pork. Teacher Karen, I have my Spanish teacher from high school here, Karen Simmons. I not eating pork now. I not drinking Coca-Cola and stimulants now. But eating banana bread. And I realized that, hey, even there, I have to watch myself, because the banana, the older the better for the banana bread, it is causing the increased levels of tyramine. And this is another one. Christmas coming up. Black cake. Oh gosh. And I wasn't going to go there, but I saw the ferment and it came to my mind. Lystra. It came to my mind. The black cake. No, you can't eat. They say when you bake it, the alcohol goes off. No. A little poison and a gallon of poison does the same thing as a matter of time. Right? So let me just put that in there. So you want to avoid, getting back to the topic, spoil food. You want to avoid spoil food. So once you see these little spots, you see it start to get like this, discard it. And don't cut it out and use the rest, because the same thing will be transferred. So you want to eat these things when they, coming into the right phase, but you want to avoid like some of these foods, right? And here's a step, goes a step further. When you combine this with drug medication, even some good herbs, you have some serious issues. Julian, Cheryl, when you have excess tyramine, whether it came from the aged, fermented, or spoiled foods, and then you are taking medications for antidepressant, or you're using herbs like passion flower, nutmeg, turmeric, as we call saffron, kava, celery, when you combine these things, what you end up with is serious crisis organ damage, central nervous system, heart, kidney, cerebral hemorrhage, or in other words, bleeding. So when these two things combine with some of these drugs or herbs, you could end up with some serious issues. The Bible says, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in good health. This is what these webinars are for. Listen, the first time I learned these things, I was blown away, maybe like some of you are. Sister Roxanne and myself, we did this course together. I know some of the medical missionaries are on here. When I learned this thing for the first time, I was blown away now. I was saying, what? And listen, I thought I was Mr. Healthy. And when I watch this thing, boy, I come last. As my friend Nicole in Grenada says, I come last. And so I had to make changes. And listen, I'm not there yet, but I am a work in progress, right? So just wanna bring that out there. Coach is not perfect, but coach is working. Now let's read on. It says nicely prepared vegetables and fruits in their season will be beneficial if they are of the best quality, not showing the slightest sign of decay, but are sound and unaffected by disease or decay. More, not some, more die by eating decayed fruit and decayed vegetables, which ferment in the stomach and result in blood poisoning than we have idea of. Roxanne said she didn't even place. Roxanne, girl, I feel worse. I think I still below you. Sister Roxy from Evesham Church. Right? And listen, guys, let me tell you something, right? This is something I want to insert here. It's not in my slide. But you see these books, Ministry of Healing, Counsels on Diets and Food, and the entire Sister Ellen G. White health books. If you could get a physical copy of those books, I would strongly recommend you do that. Why? Because there may be a time when the digital copies will be taken away. Who knows? But keep that physical copy in your hand and read a page a day. If you want to start with one, get that book, Ministry of Healing. You could find it in any of the Adventist bookstore, IADPA. Find it in any bookstore. Tell them Coach Jason send you for that book. Ministry of Healing. Read that book from page to page. One page per day. That's your challenge. And your mind will be open. You will see so much information that you never know. But once you know and start to practice, you will see a massive transformation in your life. Right? Now, let's get down to the fun stuff. We're on the home stretch now. We're on the home stretch. I was hoping to take an hour, but that didn't work out. Lovely. So, these are the foods you want to increase. Why you want to increase these foods? Because these foods are natural diuretics. Remember we said that the drug medication were acting as diuretics, which they will throw off the excess water, excess volume, so that the pressure will drop. Well, these are some natural ones that you can do that the Creator God has already given us, so we do not need to use the drugs. Water, of course, you want to start your day with half a lemon. And if you have the concentrate, it's going to be 2 tablespoons of lemon juice concentrate to an 8-ounce glass of warm water. If you have the lemon, half to a whole lemon to 1 cup of water in the morning. That's warm water. Start every day off like that. You will give your kidney a jump start. You will give your liver a jump start. And it will even help to start melting away some fat. That is something you could do for the rest of your life. And when you do that, Sister Roxanne, drink it through a straw so you protect the enamel of your teeth. Now, fresh fruits and vegetables. Melon, guava, coconut, mangoes, papaya, tomatoes, pineapples, grapes, grapefruit. So let's pull the handbrakes up here. We gotta pull the handbrakes up, Sherian, in Anguilla. We gotta bring the handbrakes up. Grapefruit is a really good food. Listen, grapefruit will make you lose weight like what? However, what did I say? However, if you're on blood pressure medication, do not use grapefruit. Grapefruit causes the blood pressure medication to stay in the system a lot longer, and it also causes the blood pressure medication to intensify. So if you're on blood pressure medication, Haley, good to see you, do not use grapefruit. However, if you're not on those, listen, get grapefruit. Drink a grapefruit or suck a grapefruit first thing in the morning, you will lose weight like what? Okay? So just something there to put. Cabbage, carrots. Carrots actually have 8 compounds that lower blood pressure. So something you want to add. Beets, asparagus, celery, cauliflower, broccoli has 6 compounds to lower blood pressure. Eggplant, legumes, garlic, onion, nuts and grains. As we mentioned, pink Himalayan sea salt with iodine and trace minerals. So those are some of the foods you want to increase. That is turn off the tap. Now we're going to unplug the sink. Now we got the hard stuff out. Let's go to unplugging the sink. So we're going to look at the laws of health, and I'm going to go through them one by one. We're going to go fast now. So let's go to God remedies. Pure air. Now, deep breathing, this is something you want to do. Let me tell you a quick story about this. I was in Point 41 doing health checks at the Variety bookstore. And if you're in Point 14, that's a very good bookstore. You could pop by. It's almost like the Adventist bookstore, and it has health foods there. I was there once doing health checks, and a client walked in, and she had elevated blood pressure. When we took her blood pressure was high. So we allowed her to sit down. Of course, we allowed her to sit down before. And we took her blood pressure. Blood pressure was through the roof. I said, all right, no problem. So in my training, I had learned about respirate, right? And it's a breathing technique that is used to lower blood pressure. So I put this on a chair and I had her respirate. And in the respirate process, what I did, I said, sit, inhale, hold your breath for 10 seconds, exhale slowly, hold that out for 10 seconds, inhale, hold for 10 seconds, exhale, no breathing for 10 seconds, and repeat that 10 times. At the end, her blood pressure came down. That was all we did. And that was my first live example of the power of respirate. Now, when you exercise, you would automatically improve your breathing, which would, in addition to the other benefits of exercise, help you to lower your blood pressure. So when you wake up in the morning, this is something you want to do. And I'm going to start with the easiest one. I'm not telling you to take no herbs. I'm not telling you to do nothing crazy. The first and easiest one you could do when you wake up in the morning, open your window, provide you live in a nice, sog-free environment, and inhale. Just take a few deep breaths. Inhale, hold your breath for 5 or 10 seconds, release slowly, stop breathing for 5 or 10 seconds, inhale, hold your breath for 5 or 10 seconds, release slowly, and repeat that cycle for 10 times, and you will sit back and watch the glory of God. Now, the next one is sunlight. This is what sunlight does, right? Sunlight produces something called nitric oxide. I want you to pay attention to this, nitric oxide. Now, what nitric oxide does, Nitric oxide is like the hose that I showed you earlier, taking your finger off the tip. So it causes your blood vessels to open up and it causes your blood pressure to drop. So when you spend time in the sunlight, your body will naturally produce these blood dropping nitric oxide, which would help you. Now, in the Caribbean, the sun produces something called UVB rays. UVB rays is where you get the maximum vitamin D3. And these rays are typically highest between the hours of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Now, here's the question. Where are most of us at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.? Most of us are inside, whether it is in the office, the classroom, or even at home. So we don't get that sunlight. And I'll give you some alternatives to this, but I'm going to give you these laws first. Now, I want to bring something clear. You would notice that I started this with the laws of health. And the reason I do this, when persons come to me, they say, Coach Jason, I have high blood pressure, for example. What herb should I use to take high blood pressure? To lower my high blood pressure? Well, let me show you something, right? And this applies to herbs that it does to drugs. According to this chart, it says that this disease came about because a condition appeared from a violation. So if I fix the laws of health, I would fix everything else thereafter. Where in this chart does it say herbs? Where in this chart does it say the blood pressure is high because you lack in herbs? Nowhere on this chart. So I would always give you the natural laws of health because that is the true cause. The herbs will come in after we have established this base, we have stopped violating laws of health, then we use the herbs to mop up the flow, which you will see I come to shortly. So you are not hypertensive, you do not have high cholesterol, your blood sugar is not out of control because you're lacking any herbs. Your blood sugar is out of control because you're violating the laws. So let's fix the laws and then we'll work the herbs after. Make sense? If the thing makes sense, put in the chat, say, Coach, thing make all the sense in the world. Lovely. Now we're looking at abstemiousness or temperance. Abstemiousness or temperance. So abstemiousness is simply use judiciously that which is good for you and abstain from that which is harmful. So the things that are good for you, use only enough of it. And the things that are harmful, not a little bit for the stomach's sake, abstain. Don't use it at all. Examples could be overworking, overeating, those sort of stuff. And some ways that can help you is that you can learn to delegate, learn to say no, and planning ahead. This could help you from becoming intemperate. We're moving along. Sleep. Now, how is sleep helpful for the hypertensive person? It relaxes the body, thus lowering the blood pressure. Now, you want to go to bed before 10 p.m. Why? Because if you stay awake after 10 p.m., it increases cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which will cause the inflammation in the arteries. Remember, when the arteries are inflamed, they become smaller, and it will cause the blood pressure to raise. Exercise. Now, if you have high blood pressure, one of the best form of exercise you can do is walking. And you want to look at about 60 minutes per day, 7 days a week, and that might be challenging. Here is the fix to that. I recently found this on Amazon. It is something called a walking pad. It's literally like a flat pad you could hold anywhere in your house. And it's about the size of a mat. And it's like a treadmill with just the flat pad. So that is something you can actually use. Get this thing is like under 100 US. And you could walk on that. And that could make up a 60 minutes. So maybe you can't go outside because of security issues. But you could probably do 10 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening, or 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening. You have it hour per day and in a safe environment. So that's just something I thought I'd put in there. Now, if you look at running versus walking, walking actually lowers your blood pressure a lot faster than running. So according to this chart, reduce blood pressure, walking beat 7.2%. To reduce cholesterol, walking 7% versus 4.3% for running. For reducing diabetes, they're about closer to the same. And for reducing cardiovascular heart disease, walking outperform running. Now, the next one, the use of water. We're going fast now. We talk about the lemon water in the morning, and we're going to look at something called hydrotherapy. Now, this is something you might want to pay attention to. If you have high blood pressure, this is what we recommend, not for diabetics. If you have diabetes, don't use this one. If you don't, you're going to do something called hydrotherapy. You're going to submerge your feet in some warm water, and you might need somebody to help you with this, and then gradually increase the heat. So you'll put your foot in the warm water, keep the kettle close by, and have that person, or if you can do it yourself, gradually increase the heat for 20 minutes. And when you're doing this, place a towel around your upper body and you could place an ice cold rag on your head. This would actually help to lower your blood pressure by increasing circulation. Now, if you have a chronic case, like the lady who came into the office, you want to work above the heart. So when you do hydrotherapy, you want to stay above the heart. So this one now will take a bowl and we'll submerge both arms in the container and you do the same thing. Gradually increase the heat, place a towel around your body, and do a cold rag on your head. Now, my goal was to have some live demonstrations of this for this training, but that didn't pan out. But I will try and do those live demonstrations maybe with my wife and post it up in the Evisham SDA chat and also in the Fitma group so you guys can see what it looks like, right? So I just thought I'll bring it here. Now, we have turned off the top, we have unplugged this thing, now we're going to mop it up. This is where the herbs come in. Now, remember what I said earlier. Since COVID-19 come on the scene, the original methods don't work. So the first thing we have to do, and listen, this step number one here applies to every single disease I will teach from here until we finish these seminars. So the first thing you have to do, you have to detox your body of the spike protein. That's the first thing. If you're going to deal with high blood pressure, you must detox your body from the spike protein. Here's the formula. And there's something, let me put it here. It is 2 tablespoons of each herb, right? So you're going to make a tea that contains 2 tablespoons of burdock root, milk thistle, dandelion, cinchona bark, wormwood. Pause. Cinchona bark is the natural version of hydroxychloroquine. Wormwood is a natural version of ivermectin. Astragalus, or nettle, or corn silk, or parsley. Now, nettle is the sting nettle we have in St. Vincent's. That is what we're talking about. Pine needle and licorice. Now, this is the tea you're going to make. How are you going to do it? You're going to fill a pot with 8 cups of water and bring it to a boil. And then you're going to add all of those ingredients in there and let it simmer for about 15 minutes. Turn off the heat, cover it, and let it draw out for 4 to 12 hours. Now, how I normally recommend you do this is that you do it in the evening, turn off the heat. Like when it's in the evening, I'm talking about like 7 to 8 o'clock. Turn off the heat and then let it draw out. Let it draw out for about, let it draw out overnight. All right? This is how we'll normally recommend that you do it. This is how we'll normally recommend that you do it. All right? So this is the spike protein detox. Now, for those of you who have already used the 14-day spike protein detox, it is actually the same thing. This is the exact same formula. So, we have a spike protein detox. This is actually where this came from. So, this is the first thing you do before you start any other thing. Now, once that is out of the way, and this is also included, you want to use the NAC and acetylcysteine. You're looking at about 2 cups, 1 to 2 cups in the morning, and then the nattokinase, 1 to 2 cups, 30 minutes before meal on an empty stomach. So you will take the nattokinase in the morning, that's the NSC, and you will take the NSC, you will take the NSC in the morning on an empty stomach, and you will take the nattokinase before lunch or before dinner. Right now, caution, if you're on blood thinners, do not use these. So you'll have to skip this. As I mentioned, both of these are part of the spike protein detox. So you could either get the herbs yourself, take a snapshot, I'll send it out to you guys after, or if you get the spike protein detox, it does the same thing. Okay, just start up, put it in there. Now, there are a list of other vitamins, but what I've found to be the easiest thing to do is just buying a whole food multivitamin. The 2 that we recommend is the Alive Max 3 or the Berry Treasure VM100, and just use that as directed by the bottle. Now, if you have someone or yourself got heart damage because of the COVID-19 vaccine, then this is something you need to add to it. So you'll need to get a magnesium complex. Guys, don't worry, right? I'm going to give you guys my email address if you don't have it already. And so we can send out this protocol for you after. Okay, so I'll put it out there. So don't worry if you're not able to make the notes, I'll send it out for you guys after. So this protocol needs to be followed for 2.5 months to 3 months for maximum heart repair. It includes magnesium complex, 2 capsules twice per day, CoQ10, 100 milligrams twice daily, hawthorn berry extract, and this is one of the powerful herbs that is used for anybody who even anybody had a heart failure or heart attack, this is something you want to put them on. And the last one is vitamin D3 and K2. Now, remember we said that ideally you want to be in the sun from 9 to 3, but if that can't happen, that is where you'll bring the vitamin D3 and K2. The reason we have added K2, vitamin D3 helps calcium also to be absorbed in the body. However, with vitamin D3 alone, if there's too much calcium, the excess could be deposited in your arteries and cause a new problem where you have arterial calcium deposited in your arteries.
So what K2 does, K2 forces the excess calcium back into the bones where it is used. So if it's not used here, it forces the excess calcium back into the bones. That's what we now use with K2, and that's about 10,000 daily. Now, there's some other teas that you could use. These are either or, right? So you could use linden tea. This is ounces, hibiscus or sorrel. And in England, they call our sorrel, and we call sorrel in Finland, so they call it hibiscus. Now, hibiscus could also work, and the hibiscus flower could also work, or the sorrel could work. So either or. 2 ounces of this, and bay leaf, soursop, or avocado. So if you're going to use bay leaf, soursop, or avocado, you're looking at about 7 of these. 7 bay leaf, or 7 soursop, or 7 avocado. Now, for those in Simmons, I know you have these things in abundance, especially if you're living in the most fertile valley in the Western Hemisphere, which is the Marico Valley. That is true, by the way. You can use these. The other one is 2 dried breadfruit leaves. So what I'm giving you guys here, these are options. So if you have linden, you use linden. If you have hibiscus, you use hibiscus. If you have sorrel, you use sorrel. If you have bay leaf, you use bay leaf, and you go down the list. Now, how you will do it, you will draw in 5 liters of hot water for 3 hours. Again, like I said, guys, just boil this just before you go to bed, turn off the heat, turn off the stove, and leave it to draw overnight. That's the easiest way, right? We're still talking about some other teas that we could use. Now, corn silk. Corn silk can be used, and that is the hair of the corn. So the hair of the corn, that is what we call corn silk. These are either or, right? Corn silk, parsley, or overearthly. Now, the reason we use this, remember we said that the kidneys help to do what? Regulate the blood pressure. So if the kidneys regulate the blood pressure, these tea actually help the kidneys, which help the kidneys to regulate the blood pressure, helps them to do their job, right? So just thought I'll put that in there for you guys, and we'll go from there. Right. Other herbs, garlic, 4 cloves daily, and you want to roast these cloves. You don't want to eat them raw. Roast these cloves, and you can use them throughout your food daily. Or there's a supplement called Galinase. Use it as directed on the bottle. Omega-3, flaxseed, or as we call it, linseed. You're going to be using 2 tablespoons freshly grounded daily. And when you ground it up, you want to put the excess in the fridge so that it doesn't spoil. What this would do, this would actually bring on the inflammation in the arteries and cause the blood pressure to go down, right? Other one, calcium and magnesium. If you have pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds or sesame seeds, you can use a handful for the pumpkin seeds or sesame seeds or sunflower seeds. You can use these daily, and that would help to give you the calcium and magnesium. If you're not diabetic, then you would want to use blackstrap molasses, and that would also help with the potassium. Okay? And then last but not least, kelp or dulce or pink Himalayan salt. Now, what I'm giving you guys here is the options. So if you want to do this by order of priority, the first thing that everybody should do, if you haven't already, is definitely to remove the spike protein, which will be following this protocol, right? This is the first thing you should do. So if you did nothing else, do at least this. Do this. Now, once you have this out of the way, because with this out of the way, everything else works better. Then you could add any of these things that we mentioned there, things for the kidneys, the useful teas. I know you guys have all of this in the countries that you are in, and you can go from there. Now, there's 2 supplements I like to give an honorable mention to, and these are ones I have been using, and I found them to be extremely powerful. One of them is called the B Cardio, and that's a cardio health formula. And why I like this one, I'll tell you which one I like the most, right? This one has a lot of the same things that we're mentioning here. So it has the beet extract, it has L-citrulline and L-arginine. Now remember we talk about nitric oxide that the sun produces that causes the blood vessels to open. So this one actually has the nitric oxide in there. It also has the hawthorn berry extract, which we talk about to repair the heart, and it has the CoQ10. And it comes in these simple packets. You just open them in your drink, and you drink them, and it gets the job done. Now, this one tastes really good, and general population, again, it's easy to take. My personal favorite one is this one. Why? Because we mentioned that you need to get your greens, you need to get your vegetables up, you need to get the nitric oxide up, and then you need to get vitamin D3 and K2. Pay attention to this. This one has potassium. Remember we talk about potassium. Healthy salts. This one has active greens. So it has the barley juice, it has the oatgrass, it has the camat juice, it has alfalfa. So you have a very potent active greens. That's all the vegetables in one sachet. The nitric oxide in this one is over 4,585. Now pay attention to this. The Bicardio has 2,442 milligrams. However, the nitric oxide in the Cardio Health or the Epigreens is twice that, 4,585. In addition to that, it has something called Shilajit. I'm sure you guys been hearing about Shilajit. And it has also something with the, just like we have the sea salt, what they use something called Omni AC, which is taken from the bed of a lake in Utah. So it's like the Dead Sea salt. So you have all of those minerals in there. In addition to that, it has vitamin C. It has vitamin D3 and K2. It has the vitamin B. It has magnesium, chromium, and chloride. So these are really the ones that this is the one I personally like the most, because to me, it's like you're buying one thing, but you're getting heart health, you're getting greens, you're getting nitric oxide, you're getting vitamin D3, you're getting multivitamins, and you're getting your sea salt. So this is the one I personally recommend. I find this works really good, especially if you have high blood pressure. Not just high blood pressure. We had a client, a friend of mine was telling me about his wife. She uses this. She just had a baby, and she started using the Epic Greens, and it actually increased her not blood flow, her breast milk. Right. So it has a bunch of other benefits outside of what we mentioned here. Right. So thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have learned quite a lot tonight. I know we spent a little bit more time than I would have planned, so I probably need to plan for an hour and a half for these webinars. Or maybe we need to cut some things out. Sister Roxanne, we could talk about that after. Let me just take about 5 minutes Q&A. Just type your questions in the chat, and I'll see how much of these I can get through, and then we'll go from there. Now, while you guys are putting your questions together, we're going to be spending the whole of summer doing these webinars. So just stay tuned to the Evesham SDA Church, stay tuned to the FitMart community, and we're going to be doing a lot of these health webinars so that we can educate you, that we can equip you with the tools so that whatever happens in the future, you already know how to reverse diseases using the natural laws. So I'm going to give you guys like 2 minutes to jump into these questions, and then we will wrap up tonight's session. Again, thank you all for being here. In terms of the herbals, most of these herbals that we mentioned here, you can find them in your country, especially like the breadfruit leaf, the soursop. In terms of the actual products, you could find them at most of the health food stores. I will personally tell you that you could find most of them at the IADPA, the Adventist bookstore. And what I will do, you guys will message me after. In fact, let me just put our email here. If you guys have any questions and you forgot them, you will message me after, because some of this stuff we'll have to do outside of Sabbath hours. So the email is support@fitma.com. Right, that is the email address. So make a note of that email. Message me. I will be sending you guys the handout here for what we just covered here tonight. So you guys will have it on hand so that you can, always refer back to this information. You could also, if you enjoyed this webinar, you have any questions, you could leave them on the Evesham SDA Facebook page or YouTube channel or the FitMap page, whichever one works for you, and we will definitely get back to you. Again, here's a question. How often should we use the supplements in the last 2 slides? So I'm assuming we're talking about these ones. So this is either or, right? So if you use this one, this is specifically for heart health. This one is for heart health and everything else. So both of them I think cost the same. So my personal preference would be use this one. But you could use this one. How often you use this? It would be 1 sachet per day. So they come in little sachets. You just open them, you pour it out in your water, mix it around, and drink it down. 1 per day, that will take care of the job, right? So just thought I would put that in there. Right, perfect. Okay, so I think that's all the questions I see there. So again, that is email. Please shoot a message over to that email so that we can send you over, as we promised, we're going to send you over a free handout of everything that we covered here tonight. So shoot me a message at that email. If you have me on WhatsApp, if you have Evesham SDA Church on WhatsApp, you could shoot those messages over and ensure that we send you over that free handout. So again, on behalf of the Evesham SDA Church, on behalf of FITMA, we thank you guys so much for being here. Again, we'll be doing a lot of these. We'll try to put it on all of the channels so you guys can get the maximum benefit and learn so much from it. Take care. Again, on behalf of the AY department of the Evesham SDA Church, we want to thank a lot Sister Renice Robertson for facilitating this meeting tonight. And I look forward to seeing you guys on our future trainings. Sister Renice, the AY department, the health department will tell you when these are, and so you can make a special effort to be here. Coach Jason, have yourselves a great evening. Happy Sabbath. Shoot me over that email so I can get you your free hand